Honorable Senators, former Senator and Minister Dr. Daphne Phillips-Gaskin passed away on Wednesday, December the 3rd, 2025. I now invite members to offer tributes. The Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise once more, this time to pay tribute to the late former Senator Dr. Daphne Phillips-Gaskin, who departed this life on the 3rd of December 2025. Dr. Daphne Phillips-Gaskin was a woman of extraordinary depth. She was an academic, a nurse, a mentor, policymaker, and a patriot. Her lifelong commitment to empowering communities, uplifting women, strengthening families, and enriching the cultural fabric of our nation will forever stand as a testament to her vision and integrity. Dr. Phillips-Gaskin served our country with distinction in the Basil Pandey administration of 1995 to 2001, holding several key ministerial portfolios, to wit, Minister of Community Development, Culture and Women's Affairs, Minister of Culture and Gender Affairs, and Minister in the Ministry of Community Empowerment, Sport and Consumer Affairs. She also served as a government senator during that period and later returned to the Parliament as an opposition UNC senator in 2008. Such was the esteem in which she was held that she was entrusted to act as Prime Minister on multiple occasions, and she carried out that responsibility with calm competence and unwavering dignity. Incidentally, Mr. President, she was the second woman to act as Prime Minister of this country, the first being the Honorable Kamla Persad-Bissessar. Dr. Phillips-Gaskin was a stalwart of the UNC, and in 2024, the Honorable Kamla Persad-Bissessar honored her with a Long Service Award celebrating her sterling and enduring contributions to the UNC party and to our national development. Before joining the UNC, Dr. Phillips-Gaskin was a member of the People's Popular Movement, the PPM, under Michael Alls. When the PPM merged with the newly formed UNC in 1991, she became part of this party's foundation and never wavered in her commitment to the UNC thereafter. She served not only in the government and the parliament, but also within the UNC's internal structures, including as a member of the UNC National Executive. And her voice, wisdom, and steadfast support strengthened the organization from its earliest days right up to her final years. She was a highly trained social scientist, and she specialized in sociology, behavior modification, health, and the sociology of development. She pursued her studies at the University of the West Indies in Trinidad and Jamaica, and later at the University of Illinois at Chicago. Her early training at Bishop Anstey High School and Osmond High School laid the foundation for a life of academic excellence and service. Dr. Phillips brought her extensive experience in nursing, midwifery, or midwifery, I think it is. Yes, I'm sorry, and nurse education to the Caribbean, shaping countless professionals across the region. She taught later at several tertiary institutions, including the University of the West Indies, where she helped mold future generations of leaders and thinkers. Across her academic career, Mr. President, Dr. Phillips shaped public discourse on health sector reform, the migration of medical workers, violence and social problems in schools, teenage sexuality, class and ethnicity in Trinidad, HIV/AIDS and public health, and women's development and gender affairs. As an advocate for women, youth, and communities, as minister and community leader, Dr. Phillips championed the needs of the vulnerable. Her achievements included establishing programs for disadvantaged women, introducing one of the first male domestic violence units to address gender-based violence at its roots, supporting youth development through counseling, training, and community engagement, strengthening cultural institutions, including contributions to the National Steel Orchestra and the National Trust. Now, Mr. President, Dr. Phillips's later years were marked by the profound challenge of chronic illness, and the onset of multiple sclerosis changed her life physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Yet, rather than withdraw, she committed herself to advocacy, supporting others through her own struggles with MS. Her lived experience and her profound empathy contributed to the eventual establishment of the Multiple Sclerosis Society of Trinidad and Tobago, giving voice, community, and support to those living with the disease. Dr. Daphne Phillips leaves behind a legacy of public service of the highest order, a body of scholarship that advanced national understanding of critical social issues, a lifelong commitment to women, youth, the vulnerable, and the marginalized, a model of personal integrity, resilience, and faith, a courageous and compassionate fight on behalf of persons with multiple sclerosis. And her life, Mr. President, was transformative, not only for herself, but for the countless individuals, communities, and institutions that she touched during her lifetime. Mr. President, may we extend on this side condolences to her dear family, and may she rest in peace and rise in glory. Thank you.
Dr. Amory Brown.
Mr. President, I too join in respectful tribute to offer some words in respect of the memory and legacy of Dr. Daphne Phillips-Gaskin. Offer this tribute as well on behalf of the People's National Movement bench in the Senate. Mr. President, Dr. Daphne Phillips-Gaskin was born on the 24th of January, 1944. She lived a long and fulfilling life, having passed on the 3rd of December, 2025. It is no exaggeration to state that this was one remarkable lady. She leaves to mourn a loving family, including 2 children. Dr. Daphne Phillips-Gaskin was one of the most multi-talented and multifaceted citizens to have served a public role in this nation of Trinidad and Tobago. She attended Bishop Anstey High School and Osmond High School, and subsequently obtained a Bachelor of Science degree in Sociology at the University of the West Indies, a Master of Science in Sociology of Development at the University of the West Indies, and then in 1993, she earned a PhD, also in Sociology of Health and Medicine, from the University of Illinois in the United States of America. But that was just the beginning. She was also a registered nurse and certified midwife. And indeed, her family and loved ones must be very proud of her various contributions and her overall legacy. She is one of the most versatile individuals to have served as a senator in this country. From 1991 to 1993, she worked for the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, UN-ECLAC, and also worked as a consultant with the United Nations. She also worked as a research and training officer at the Family Planning Association of Trinidad and Tobago. She also served as a lecturer in sociology at UWI St. Augustine and as a lecturer in behavioral science at UWI St. Augustine. She also served as a lecturer in medical sociology at UWI Mount Hope. And Mr. President, she was there when I was there as a medical student. She was there as a lecturer. Quiet, calm, respectful, and very interested in the medical students' future. In the year 2002, she became the regional coordinator for HIV research in the Caribbean at CAREC. She also lectured at the bar at UWI St. Augustine. She went on to become a senior lecturer in sociology at UWI and then as professor of sociology at the University of the Southern Caribbean. So nursing, medical training, sociology, research, coordinating HIV at CAREC, and work at the Family Planning Association, an extremely versatile and multi-talented individual. We know that she also worked at the Cipriani Labor College and lectured for a short while at the Seminary of St. John Vianney. Throughout this sweep of service, Dr. Daphne would have empowered, edified, and enlightened tens of thousands of students. Who are all grateful. As has been indicated, she served as a government minister of Trinidad and Tobago in several portfolios and as acting Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Dr. Daphne would be remembered as a very serene, calm, well put together senator who was very knowledgeable on matters on which she would have spoken. Quite a non-toxic servant of the people who always sought to get the job done. She's also noted as an exemplary mother to her dear children. Mr. President, I join others in respectful and sincere tribute to the memory of Dr. Daphne Phillips-Gaskin, who left her mark on this country during her long and distinguished service in a variety of capacities. May she rest in God's divine peace, and may her beloved family and loved ones find comfort in the knowledge that her legacy will live on in the lives of her many students, of her colleagues in the Senate, and in the endeavors of the next generation whose lives she touched and improved. May she rest in peace.
Senator Dr. Marlene Arts.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise this afternoon on behalf of the independent bench to pay tribute to Dr. Daphne Phillips-Gaskin. As we've heard from colleagues in their contributions, she was a scholar, a sociologist, a former minister, a former senator, a community advocate, a nurse, and a woman whose public life exemplified the deep connection between rigorous academic work and meaningful national service. In making this tribute, Mr. President, I also pay tribute to my former UWI St. Augustine colleague. Dr. Phillips spent more than 2 decades at the University of the West Indies St. Augustine campus. She was my colleague in the Faculty of Social Sciences, and we were actually office neighbors since we occupied offices on the same corridor. I had the privilege of seeing her dedication and quiet strength up close. Before she entered political office, Dr. Phillips was, above all else, a sociologist. She was a scholar who examined the structures, the systems, and social forces that shape everyday life in Trinidad and Tobago. At the UWI Faculty of Social Sciences, she lectured in sociology, social policy, and the sociology of health. Her students remember her as a demanding but deeply compassionate teacher, someone who insisted that social science must illuminate the lived realities of ordinary people. Her research, published in journals such as Caribbean Dialogue and International Sociology, shaped regional thinking on health and society. Her influential 1986 article, The Politics of Medical Dominance in Trinidad and Tobago, published in the Sage journal International Sociology, examined how structural inequalities and professional hierarchies influence patient experience and access to care. Long before the terms health inequity and structural violence became part of mainstream policy discourse, Dr. Phillips was interrogating the power relations embedded in our healthcare system and calling for a more humane, equitable model. Her scholarly work extended to nurse migration, youth development, community resilience, and the social roots of public health challenges. Across her academic career, she asked difficult but necessary questions, including, why do our healthcare systems continue to marginalize the very people they are meant to serve? How do race, gender, and class shape access to care and justice? What structural changes may be necessary to make development truly people-centered? In many ways, her sociological lens became the compass of her public life. She approached society not as a set of problems to be administratively managed, but as a living system of people whose dignity and well-being required deliberate, thoughtful, and evidence-based action. Dr. Phillips was part of a rare tradition in Trinidad and Tobago, scholars who bring their academic training to bear on national policy. As noted earlier, she served in several parliaments, and her legislative contributions reflected her sociological preoccupations with justice, opportunity, and the structure of community life. Among the bills she debated were the Domestic Violence Bill, the Equal Opportunity Bill, the Consumer Protection legislation, and measures relating to gender affairs, culture, and community empowerment. These are not, Mr. President, incidental details. They reveal a policymaker who saw the state not merely as an instrument of administration, but as a mechanism for equity, protection, and social transformation. A colleague who worked with Dr. Phillips in the sphere of gender affairs remembers her as Minister of Community Development, Culture, and Gender Affairs, and later as a senator who championed the idea that development must begin with strengthening of people's capacity to participate in society, to work, to create, to belong, and to thrive. Her legislative record shows consistent attention to the everyday struggles of households and communities, especially women, working families, and those whose voices are least heard. Dr. Phillips assumed the portfolio as Minister of Gender Affairs at a pivotal moment, just after the landmark 1995 Beijing conference, when global conversations on gender equality were deepening. It was Dr. Phillips who first moved to shift the national discourse from women's affairs to gender affairs, recognizing that meaningful transformation required understanding the full spectrum of gender relations in Trinidad and Tobago. She was the minister who insisted on grounding policy in the lived realities of both women and men. As part of this work, she initiated projects such as homework centers and skills training programs in non-traditional areas, thereby opening new pathways for economic participation, particularly for women and young people. Her colleagues remember that Dr. Phillips was the first minister to formally engage a committee of men so that she could better understand their perspectives, an early recognition in our national space that progress in gender justice required insights and participation of men as well. What stood out most, however, was her approachability and humility. Despite the trappings of ministerial office, Dr. Phillips was known for truly listening to even the youngest members of her teams. She was not swept up in ceremony or status. She was described simply and powerfully as an excellent minister, one whose sincerity, curiosity, and willingness to learn made her leadership both effective and deeply human. This testimony reinforces what her parliamentary and academic record already shows, that Dr. Daphne Phillips brought to every role, lecturer, sociologist, minister, senator, a profound respect for people and a desire to shape policy that resonated with the social realities of those she served. Dr. Phillips embraced her degenerative illness with extraordinary candor and courage. Rather than retreat, she transformed her private struggle into public advocacy, co-founding and later leading the Multiple Sclerosis Support Foundation of Trinidad and Tobago. Through that work, she helped bring visibility to a condition that often leaves people feeling isolated and unseen. Mr. President, as I close this tribute, I say that Dr. Phillips's journey offers 3 enduring lessons for us in this chamber. First, Dr. Phillips showed that academic insight enhances public policy. In an era when debate can be driven more by rhetoric than reason, she demonstrated that evidence and scholarship still matter, that good sociology could illuminate good governance. Second, her work affirmed that social policy, gender justice, community development, and culture are not peripheral to national progress. They are central to the health and resilience of our society. The bills she debated, the ministries in which she served, and the research she produced all reflected a unified vision, that a nation must be judged by how it treats its most vulnerable and how it builds belonging. Third, Dr. Phillips's courage in the face of long-term illness reminds us that public life is not merely about positions held, but about character demonstrated. Her perseverance, generosity, and advocacy for persons living with chronic conditions speak to the best of our civic tradition. Mr. President, on behalf of the independent bench, I extend sincere condolences to her family, her friends, her former colleagues in academia, the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation, and the communities she served across decades. We thank them all for sharing her with the country. Dr. Phillips leaves behind a legacy made not only of bills debated and policies shaped, but of minds mentored, systems interrogated, communities uplifted, and people empowered. She embodied the conviction that scholarship must serve society and that public service, when grounded in compassion and evidence, can indeed shape a more just and humane Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. President, in remembering Dr. Phillips, may she rest in peace and may perpetual light shine upon her. Thank you, Mr. President.
Honorable Senators, I rise to add my own words of tribute to our departed colleague and friend, Dr. Daphne Phillips-Gaskin, former Minister of Government, scholar, advocate, and national servant. It was more than 3 decades ago that I first met Dr. Daphne Phillips-Gaskin, who soon became my comrade in struggle. While she was a scholar of remarkable depth in the field of sociology, her work was defined not by theory alone, but by her profound empathy for the lived experiences of ordinary citizens. She was grassroots in her outlook and interactions. She understood our society, its struggles, its hopes, its contradictions, and she taught others to understand it with clarity and respect. Those who sat in her classroom did not simply learn, they were awakened. Her remarkable brilliance did not remain within the walls of the university. As previously mentioned, Dr. Daphne Phillips-Gaskin was a government senator in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago from 1995 to 2001, holding key ministerial portfolios inclusive of Minister of Community Development, Culture, and Women Affairs, and later served as a minister in the Ministry of Community Empowerment, Sport, and Consumer Affairs. Her legislative contributions were not symbolic. They were transformative. She introduced and guided the passage of the Domestic Violence Act of 1999, offering greater protection and recognition to victims at a time when these issues were still emerging in national discourse. She championed our cultural identity through the National Art Gallery and Museum Act, affirming her belief that heritage, history, and creative expression are essential to nation building. Honorable Senators, as we reflect on her life, I recall an exceptional human being whom I would describe as a gem, and iconic in her own way. She was gentle in her approach, yet powerful. Full of integrity, decency, and dignity. All this wrapped in one package. Her dedication to service remains unquestioned. And Trinidad and Tobago is better because she lived, because she taught, because she served. It is fitting that within this chamber, the place where her public service found its highest expression, we honor her memory, her work, and her legacy. May her legacy remind us that we too are called in our own areas of responsibility to build communities of dignity, advancing justice, valuing culture, and protecting the vulnerable. On behalf of my family, all members of the Senate, and the staff of the Office of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, I wish to yet again extend sincerest wishes for strength to the family of the late Dr. Daphne Phillips-Gaskin during this difficult time. May his soul rest in peace.